Harry, how does little man?
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Early voting kicked off in Georgia yesterday with high turnouts and long lines.
People had to wait in line for hours.
Look at this. I mean, we had to speed it up or we would never have gotten through the show.
The Georgia Secretary of State reported that more than 126,000 people voted in person yesterday, a 41% increase over first day of voting in 2016.
A record for Georgia's first day of early voting.
I'm a vote in person. I don't trust voting by mail.
Somewhere there's going to be a problem.
They only have 5 machines to accommodate 1,000 people.
Oh my
If we see long lines on day 2 and day 3, then certainly we have reason to worry. But turnout on the first day of early voting that happens to be on a holiday in major counties is not hugely surprising to me.
Both the Democrats and the Republicans have a very substantial turnout the vote effort. I think this may well be the largest election turnout in American history by the time it gets done.
Oh my God. All right. So, hello, everybody. Just 20 days till we know who won the election. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody. This is America and it's the 21st century. So we may never know who won on election day ever again. It's just, we might know. We might know. All right. So the confirmation hearing for the Federalist picked, hand-selected, another one, Supreme Court justice is ongoing. And again, today we are treated to hours and hours of non-answers to questions about judicial philosophy, about whether or not the gay rights marriage, Obergefell, I'm sorry, Mr. Obergefell. I know I'm mashing your name into oblivion. Whether that was rightly or wrongly decided, whether Roe was rightly or wrongly decided, whether Casey was rightly or wrongly decided, Brown versus the board. I mean, it's a waste of time except for certain presentations. Get ready to be really smart, everybody. Okay? Get ready to be really super freaking smart. What do corporations and interest groups, billionaires, want from the Supreme Court? Who picked Barrett and what do they want from her? What do they want from Neil Gorsuch? What did they want from Alito? What did they want from Kavanaugh? What do they want? What do they want? Well, let's just put it this way. They're very narrow cast. Okay, they have their eyes on certain prizes while we're all, talking about the big issues, while we're all talking about things like racial justice, while we're talking about freedom to conduct your own life and make choices for your own body, for your own damn self, right? While we're focused on whether or not we get free and fair elections ever again in this country, while we're focused on big issues, they're focused on really a fine set of issues. They're focused on things like jury trials and doing away with them. Why? Well, I don't know. Maybe you've been to a doctor lately, or maybe you've been, entering into some sort of an agreement with another, company, a big company, and maybe you've seen in the agreement or in the papers that you're signing in the doctor's office that you agree not to go to a jury trial. Instead, you agree to arbitration. You agree to have retired judges sit and hear both sides of the case and make some sort of a decision and forego jury trials. Well, this is a wet dream for corporate America. It's exactly what corporate America doesn't want. They don't want jury trials. They want to do away with them. What else do they want? Well, let's say you're looking at the Koch brothers and Chevron, or let's say you're looking at, the biggest polluters on the planet, who happen to be billionaire corporations involved in things like energy extraction. Well, maybe they want to do away with all regulations. Maybe it's a meatpacking. We've shown you that the meatpacking industry is literally almost a monopoly. I think there's 4 or 5 companies. Okay, it's radio too. I mean, there's literally like 3 companies left, 4 maybe, and they don't want any regulations. They don't want to be told where they can dump, how much they can dump, that they have to clean up. They don't want any of that to happen, okay? And how do they secure all this power and guarantee that, let's say, Congress is going to go along with it, or that the courts will remain in their control? Well, they restrict the access to the ballot. They overturn the Voting Rights Act, for instance. Say racism is over. We don't need pre-clearance anymore if we're going to go from, 800 polling places in Milwaukee to 1. We don't need to tell anybody, or Georgia, or Tennessee, or Mississippi, or Texas, okay? We don't have to pre-clear any restriction to the ballot box, okay? Because the Supreme Court said racism is over and you no longer need those pre-clearance rules in the Voting Rights Act. What about gerrymandering and the maps? How do we guarantee that the maps will be drawn in our favor? You have to pack the courts. You have to pack the courts because the courts are going to decide whether those districts crammed so many Democrats into one lone district by drawing a freakishly weird shape, and then all the Republicans have districts that guarantee that they'll only have like 3 or 4 Democrats in them. The Democrats get like, 1 district or 2. And so whoever wins the popular vote in the state is guaranteed not to have the most congressmen elected from that state. And that is the situation that we find ourselves in right now. Yesterday, Sheldon Whitehouse, instead of asking a million questions about Amy Barrett's position on Roe, or Amy Barrett's position on religious freedom, or Amy Barrett's position on gay marriage, which she would not answer because, listen, everybody else tried. I can't comment unless I actually had the case in front of me, and then I would have to go through the details and the specifics of the case, and I'd have to meet with other judges and my law clerks, and I'd have to do a legal analysis of that case in particular, and then we all know this is garbage, right? We all know that that's not going to happen. We all know that decisions are sometimes unanimous when the issue is crystal clear, but that the little stuff, the stuff that is contested in the Supreme Court is stuff we're not really paying attention to the way that we should, and those are the 5-4 decisions. Those are the ones that are voted along party lines. Yes, I'm talking about the Supreme Court and party politics, which is disgusting. But that is what the Federalist Society, the Judicial Crisis Network, various legal groups, the Mark Levins of the world, these educational groups, think tanks, Blackstone, all these groups, they are literally buying ads and giving lists of their preferred justices and appeals court judges to Donald Trump and to the Senate and to Lindsey Graham and to Ted Cruz and to other Republicans, and saying, this is who we want, and you will put their names forward and you will vote for them, and then we'll take care of you. So when we come back, we're going to go through what does the dark money that is being laundered through these groups, so that you don't know who the donors are. But I will tell you, like, one donor just gave $16 million for Amy Coney Barrett.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
All right, focus, everybody. Really, really focus. You're about to get a world-class education in why we don't matter and what has gone wrong and what is the problem. What is the problem? The problem is called dark money, and you're about to get a world-class education in what the dark money wants specifically from our courts, especially the Supreme Court.
This is to me, pretty big deal. I've never seen this around any court that I've ever been involved with, where there's this much dark money and this much influence being used. Here's how the Washington Post summed it up. This is a conservative activist behind-the-scenes campaign to remake the nation's courts, and it's a $250 million dark money operation. $250 million is a lot of money to spend if you're not getting anything for it. So that raises the question, what are they getting for it? Well, I showed the slide earlier on the Affordable Care Act and on Obergefell and on Roe versus Wade. That's where they lost. But with another judge, that could change. That's where the contest is. That's where the Republican Party platform tells us to look at how they want judges to rule, to reverse Roe, to reverse the Obamacare cases, and to reverse Obergefell and take away gay marriage. That is their stated objective and plan. Why not take them at their word? But there's another piece of it, and that is not what's ahead of us, but what's behind us. What's behind us is now 80 cases, Mr. Chairman, 80 cases under Chief Justice Roberts that have these characteristics. One, they were decided 5-4 by a bare majority. Two, the 5-4 majority was partisan in the sense that not one Democratic appointee joined the five. I refer to that group as the Roberts Five. It changes a little bit, as with Justice Scalia's death, for instance, but there's been a steady Roberts Five that has delivered now 80 of these decisions. And the last characteristic of them is that there is an identifiable Republican donor interest in those cases. And in every single case, that donor interest won. It was an 80-0, 5-4 partisan rout, ransacking. And it's important to look at where those cases went, because they're not about big public issues like getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, undoing Roe versus Wade, and undoing same-sex marriage. They're about power. And if you look at those 80 decisions, they fall into four categories over and over and over again. One, unlimited and dark money in politics. Citizens United is the famous one, but it's continued since with McCutcheon, and we've got one coming up now. Always the 5 for unlimited money in politics, never protecting against dark money in politics, despite the fact that they said it was going to be transparent. And who wins when you allow unlimited dark money in politics? A very small group. The ones who have unlimited money to spend and a motive to spend it in politics. They win, everybody else loses.
Wow. Okay, that's the first aspect of billionaire money in the court system. Okay? The very first aspect. They need to continue the gravy train. Things like Citizens United, the McCutcheon decision that said money is speech. If you're very wealthy, you get to speak with your cash. Now, you see the effect, the corrosive effect it had and has on not just what we're going through today with the Supreme Court being packed with even more people that believe that money is speech and corporations are people, my friend. But you see what it's done to a Senate that refuses to react when 98% of the American people want background checks, or when 98% of the American people love the Affordable Care Act, or when 98% of the American people feel that they're not being represented at all because the popular vote isn't, what determines the number of representatives they get in the Congress, right? And it's all about dark money. Okay, so the first thing is they need to keep dark money acceptable to the Supreme Court. They need to keep those decisions coming, saying that money is speech, that corporations are people. Okay. What's the second thing that they want? This move towards arbitration instead of a jury trial. They thought this up. They like this. Here's why.
Next, knock the civil jury down. Whittle it down to a nub. The civil jury was in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, in our darn Declaration of Independence. But it's annoying to big corporate powers because you can swagger your way as a big corporate power through Congress. You can go and tell the president you put money into to elect what to do. He'll put your stooges at the EPA. It's all great until you get to the civil jury, because they have an obligation, as you know, Judge Barrett, they have an obligation under the law to be fair to both parties, irrespective of their size. You can't bribe them. You're not allowed to. It's a crime to tamper with a jury. It's standard practice to tamper with Congress. And they make decisions based on the law. If you're used to being the boss and swaggering your way around the political side, you don't want to be answerable before a jury. And so one after another, these 85-4 decisions have knocked down, whittled away at the civil jury, a great American institution.
And now you go to arbitration. And you don't get the benefit of a jury of your peers hearing your case and weighing the facts and being instructed on the law and how you have to find if X, X, and X is present or provable or demonstrably false. No more jury trials. What else? Knock down every regulation. Talk about it in public as if it's junk science, okay? Same with the COVID pandemic. Go for herd immunity. Sacrifice people. Who cares? Who cares? In the name of profit, we will do anything. We will open schools. We will open bars. We will open bars and schools at the same time. We will dump. We will pollute. And if you get caught with, switching the water source from a river to a reservoir, and there's lead there, we need protection, not just from a jury trial, but we need regulations that are clear that say we can do this. Buyer beware, drinker beware, farmer beware. Feeding your dog, it's up to you to figure out what's in that food. They don't want any regulations, especially polluters, especially energy polluters. They are the richest, they give the most, and they have the most at stake when it comes to pollution and regulations. And that's why Donald Trump stands on the stage all the time saying, I've done away with all these regulations. What else do they want? Okay.
Third, first was unlimited dark money.
Thank you.
Second was demean and diminish the civil jury.
Right.
Third is weaken regulatory agencies. Who else would be putting buckets of money into this and wanting to hide who they are behind donors' trust or other schemes? And what if you're a big polluter, what do you want? You want weak regulatory agencies. You want ones that you can box up and run over to Congress and get your friends to fix things for you in Congress.
Right.
Over and over and over again, these decisions are targeted at regulatory agencies to weaken their independence and weaken their strength. And if you're a big polluter, a weak regulatory agency is your idea of a good day.
You following this? Okay, the first thing they want is dark money so that they can buy courts, so that they can buy Congress, so that they can hide their identities and continue to deteriorate and to just disintegrate the safety and the regulations that keep our water clean, that keep our air clean, that keep our land clean, that, and that's how you end up with a defense contractor as a lobbyist, and then you're Secretary of Defense. Or that's how you end up with a coal mining lobbyist at the EPA, okay? Also, the jury trials, they don't want to stand in front of a jury. They don't want to have to explain what they've done or be judged about what they've done, and therefore no jury trial and no regulations in the first place, so they won't even have to worry about violating regulatory standards. All right? And the very final thing that dark money wants.
And the last thing is in politics, in voting.
Voting.
Why on earth the court made the decision, a factual decision, not something appellate courts are ordinarily supposed to make, as I understand it, Judge Barrett. The factual decision that nobody needed to worry about minority voters in pre-clearance states being discriminated against or that legislators would try to knock back their ability to vote. These 5 made that finding in Shelby County against bipartisan legislation from both houses of Congress, hugely passed on no factual record.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. Just in case you're not following what Shelby is, I just wanted to tell you Shelby is the Voting Rights Act. And it was a case that was brought to say racism is over, and we don't need for states that have demonstrated repeatedly that they would suppress the voting ability of its minority communities if they did not have to pre-clear changes in polling places, how many, how far from the city they were going to put them, how many machines would be in there, or how many people they could, take every hour, right? They did away with the Voting Rights Act pre-clearance rules. The 5-4 court did based on nothing, just on an idea that Scalia had that racism was over. All right, so that's the Shelby case.
They just decided that that was a problem that was over on no record, with no basis, because it got them to the result that we then saw. What followed? State after state after state passed voter suppression laws. One so badly targeting African Americans that the 2 courts said it was surgically tailored to get after minority voters. And gerrymandering, the other great control. Bulk gerrymandering, where you go into a state, like the Red Map Project did in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and you pack Democrats so tightly into a few districts that all the others become Republican majority districts. And in those states, you send a delegation to Congress that has a huge majority of Republican members, like 13-5, as I recall, in a state where the 5, the party of the 5, actually won the popular vote. You've sent a delegation to Congress that is out of step with the popular vote of that state, and court after court figured out how to solve that, and the Supreme Court said, nope, 5-4 again, nope, we're not going to take an interest in that question. In all these areas where it's about political power for big special interests, and people who want to fund campaigns, and people who want to get their way through politics without actually showing up, doing it behind donors' trust and other groups, doing it through these schemes, over and over and over again, you see the same thing. 80 decisions, Judge Barrett. 80 decisions, an 80-0 sweep. I don't think you've tried cases, but some cases, the issue is bias and discrimination. And if you're making a bias case, as a trial lawyer, Lindsey Graham is a hell of a good trial lawyer. If he wanted to make a bias case, Dick Durbin's a hell of a good trial lawyer.
Yep.
If they wanted to make a bias case and they could show an 80-0 pattern, A, that's admissible, and B, I'd love to make that argument to the jury. I'd be really hard-pressed to be the lawyer saying, no, 80-0 is just a bunch of flukes. All 5-4, all partisan, all this way. So something is not right around the court. And dark money has a lot to do with it. Special interests have a lot to do with it. Donors' trust and whoever's hiding behind donors' trust has a lot to do with it. And the Bradley Foundation orchestrating its amici over at the court has a lot to do with it.
Okay, in case you didn't follow the last few words he said, I left them in there so that I could explain them. Amici. An amicus brief, literally in Latin, means a friend. Amicus. Amenable, right? An amicus brief. I've written an amicus brief. An amicus brief is a brief that tells the court that you are a friend of one side or another, and here's why. You lay out your interest in the issue and how it affected you, or how it affects your business, or how it affects, your family, and you write a friend of the court brief. Okay. When we come back, now that we know what dark money wants, we're going to show you who picked Amy Coney Barrett, who picked Brett Kavanaugh, who picked Neil Gorsuch, and why they picked them, and how they picked them. And when you hear the scheme, you still will not know who they are. That's why it's called dark money. There is no sunlight on this money. There is no transparency. You can only see the groups that launder the money for the donors.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
In order to make progress, we all have to agree where we currently are. We all have to agree that this is the situation we find ourselves in, that these are the facts in play. And unless and until we do, we will never have a prayer of fixing it. And the problem that we have is the money. It's the dark money. And so we spent the first part of this show showing you what the dark money wants from courts, specifically from courts and from Congress. Okay? And now that you understand that they want to do away with jury trials, they want to do away with any regulations that would protect you from them, they want to do away with your voting rights, and they want to gerrymander so that you are diluted in your hopes and dreams and aspirations to keep dark money out of politics. And in order to do that, they need to do those three things plus keep the gravy train rolling. Ensure that we get more decisions like Citizens United, like the McCutcheon decision, that says that corporations are people and that the way that those people speak is through large contributions. And still, if there were no shame around it, why then don't they just give the money? Why don't they just put their names on it? Why don't they? Because it's bad PR, that's why. It's really, really bad for a brand to be seen buying Supreme Court decisions, buying Congress, buying a Republican Party, buying appellate court seats. It's really bad PR. And so they crafted this giant labyrinth of scrubbers, basically scrubbers. The Bradley Group, the Federalist Society, okay? The Judicial Crisis Network, right? There's all of these scrubbers that get this money and scrub the names of the donors off of the money and then funnel the money. This is there will be books written about this. So pay attention.
What is the scheme here? Let me start with this one. In all cases, there's big anonymous money behind various lanes of activity. One lane of activity is through the conduit of the Federalist Society. It's managed by a guy named Leonard Leo, and it's taken over the selection of judicial nominees. How do we know that to be the case? Because Trump has said so over and over again. His White House counsel said so. So we have an anonymously funded group controlling judicial selection run by this guy, Leonard Leo. Then in another lane, we have, again, anonymous funders running through something called the Judicial Crisis Network, which is run by Carrie Severino, and it's doing PR and campaign ads for Republican judicial nominees. It got single $17 million donation in the Garland-Gorsuch contest.
Holy crap.
It got another single $17 million donation to support Kavanaugh. Somebody, perhaps the same person, spent $35 million to influence the makeup of the United States Supreme Court. Tell me that's good.
Oh.
And then over here, you have a whole array of legal groups, also funded by dark money, which have a different role. They bring cases to the court. They don't wind their way to the court, Your Honor. They get shoved to the court by these legal groups, many of which ask to lose below so they can get quickly to the court to get their business done there.
Oh, my God.
And then they turn up in an chorus, an orchestrated chorus of amici. Now, I've had a chance to have a look at this, and I was in a case, actually, as an amicus myself, the Consumer Financial Protection Board case. And in that case, there were 11 amicus briefs filed, and every single one of them was a group funded by something called Donors Trust. Donors Trust is a gigantic identity scrubbing device for the right wing so that it says Donors Trust is the donor without whoever the real donor is. It doesn't have a business. It doesn't have a business plan. It doesn't do anything. It's just an identity scrubber. And this group here, the Bradley Foundation, funded 8 out of the 11 briefs. That seems weird to me when you have amicus briefs coming in little flotillas that are funded by the same groups but nominally separate in the court. So I actually attached this to my brief as an appendix. Center for Media and Democracy saw it, and they did better work. They went on to say which foundations funded the brief writers in that CFPB case. Here's the Bradley Foundation for $5.6 million to those groups. Here's Donors Trust, $23 million to those brief writing groups. The grand total across all the donor groups was $68 million
Wow.
to the groups that were filing amicus briefs, pretending that they were different groups. And it's not just in the Consumer Financial Protection Board case. You might say, well, that was just a one-off. Here's Janus, the anti-labor case that had a long trail through the court, through Friedrichs and through Knox and through other decisions. And SourceWatch and ProPublica did some work about this. Here's Donors Trust and Donors Capital Fund, and here's the Bradley Foundation, and they totaled giving $45 million to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 groups that filed amicus briefs pretending to be different groups, and both of the lawyer groups in the case. Funded by Donors Trust, funded by Bradley Foundation in Janus. This is happening over and over and over again, and it goes beyond just the briefs. It goes beyond just the amicus presentations. The Federalist Society, remember this group that is acting as the conduit and that Donald Trump has said is doing his judicial selection? They're getting money from the same foundations. From Donors Trust, $16.7 million. From the Bradley Foundation, $1.37 million. From the same group of foundations total, $33 million. So you can start to look at these and you can start to tie them together. The legal groups, all the same funders over and over again, bringing the cases and providing this orchestrated chorus of amici. Then the same group also funds the Federalist Society over here. The Washington Post wrote a big expose about this, and that made Leonard Leo a little hot, a little bit like a burned agent.
Yeah.
So he had to jump out, and he went off to go and do anonymously funded voter suppression work.
Huh.
Guess who jumped in to take over the selection process in this case for Judge Barrett? Carrie Severino made the hop. So once again, ties right in together.
So just to put this in plain English, The Janus case was a case about unions and whether or not you could form a union. The people who influence the courts decided that keeping us from organizing as labor was worth $68 million in spending to get the court to side with them against unions in warehouses, corporations. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which Sheldon Whitehouse said he wrote an amicus brief for, right? An amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, saying why we need a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to protect Americans from liar loans, from, the banks, the big banks who were literally appraising your house for 10 times what it was worth so that they could lend you that much money, knowing your house was never going to be worth that much money, but you would be in debt to them and they could take your house. That was the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau case. That was worth spending $33 or $35 million on. And then Don McGahn, who is the White House counsel that Sheldon Whitehouse is referring to here, Don McGahn told the American people that Donald Trump was going to pick justices, that Leonard Leo, who was the head of the Federalist Group, was going to select for Donald Trump. Don McGahn, who literally stayed in the White House knowing this president was bat crap crazy, did it so that he could pick all the judges. That was Don McGahn's job as White House counsel, and he did do it. The expose that was in the Washington Post, it's in today's homework if you want to see it. Just visit randyrhodes.com and click on homework. It's about 20 pages without the photos. With the photos, it's 37 pages. It was a mind-bending expose on how they had set their sights on remaking the courts so that the courts would do away with civil juries, they would do away with regulation and voting rights.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
We know this. You've said you consider Justice Scalia one of the most conservative judges in our nation's history as a mentor. You've criticized the decision written by Justice Roberts upholding the Affordable Care Act. In a 2015 NPR interview, you praised the dissent by Justice Scalia in another Affordable Care Act case, saying the dissent had the better of the legal argument. You signed your name to a public statement featured in an ad that called for an end to what the ad called the barbaric legacy of Roe v. Wade, which ran on the anniversary of the 1973 Supreme Court decision. You wrote your own dissent disagreeing with longstanding court rulings on gun safety, expressing your legal opinion that some felons should get guns. And you once discussed the dissent in the marriage equality case, asking whether it was really the Supreme Court's job to make that decision. So to me, these tracks lead us to one place, and that is that you will have the polar opposite judicial philosophy of Justice Ginsburg. And to me, that would change the balance of this court, which is already 5-4 and known as very conservative when you look back through history, to 6-3. 6-3. And that would have great repercussions for the American people.
And now you know it's much, much more than privacy rights, freedom of choice, freedom to marry, equal rights under law for all classes of people, for all orientations, for all colors, for access to the ballot, for jury trials, for being free from people dumping lead in your water or arsenic in your water or fracking and it's all up for grabs. And, the big money in this country has scrambled into the courts, and they've been doing it for about 30 years. They are almost complete. Their project is almost complete. We know that there are identity scrubbing organizations that have absolutely no business other than laundering money for giant donors. We know that there are lobbyists that do nothing all day but lobby Congress on pollution rules, EPA regulations, insurance regulations, gerrymandering, tax law, think tanks, university programs, which we've shown you she is part of, Americans for Prosperity, which is the Koch brothers, political activists, shopping for perfect little puzzle pieces to sit on various courts across this country, but the Supreme Court being the big kahuna. Why? Why is that the brass ring? Because the lower courts, the appeals courts and the district courts, they have to follow precedent. They have to. They cannot go against the Supreme Court's decisions. The Supreme Court, though, they can change precedent. They can bend the law. You know, I got this saying, the law is the head, but the judge is the neck. And the judge can turn the head any way she wants. And that is what Supreme Court justices do. They turn the decision any way they want and set new precedent, sometimes to expand rights, which is always a good thing, and in these 5-4 cases, to take away rights. The right to access the voting booth, the right to be one man, one vote, the right to the jury trial by peers. That's what they are into. That's what the Republican Party is all about. Amy Coney Barrett was hand-selected by these groups, by the Federalist Society, by the Judicial Crisis Network. She was handpicked by Don McGahn and all of his affiliates in all these groups. And they found emails. Sheldon Whitehouse literally found an email. When Leonard Leo was exposed in that Washington Post piece, which is very long and it's totally worth reading, because entire books are going to be written about this period in American history, about the pollution of our civil discourse, about the pollution of our courts by money, the purchasing of senators, the purchasing of House members, all of it. The union busting that was achieved through the courts. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that Elizabeth Warren broke her back to set up to protect people from the moneyed elite banks, the big banks, that was then taken over by the Trump administration and sort of dismantled, so that we have no consumer protection again. He found an email after the Leo Leonard expose in the Washington Post, and it made him radioactive. So he had to step down from the Federalist Society. A girl named Carrie Severino from the Judicial Crisis Network, then moved over to the Federalist Society. Okay, and Sheldon Whitehouse found an email where Leonard Leo is directing a donor to Carrie Severino.
This email comes from an individual at the Bradley Foundation, and it asks our friend Leonard Leo, who used to run the selection process, is there a 501c3 nonprofit to which Bradley could direct any support of the 2 Supreme Court amicus projects other than Donors Trust? I don't know why they wanted to avoid the reliable identity scrubber Donors Trust, but for some reason they did. So Leonard Leo writes back on Federalist Society address. So don't tell me that it isn't Federalist Society business. On Federalist Society, on his address, he writes back, yes, send it to the Judicial Education Project, which could take and allocate the money. And guess who works for the Judicial Education Project? Carrie Severino. who also helped select this nominee running the Trump Federalist Society selection process.
Jesus.
So the connections abound. In the Washington Post article, they point out that the Judicial Crisis Network's office is on the same hallway in the same building as the Federalist Society, and that when they sent their reporter to talk to somebody at the Judicial Crisis Network, somebody from the Federalist Society came down to let them up. This, more and more, looks like it's not 3 schemes, but it's one scheme, with the same funders selecting judges, funding campaigns for the judges, and then showing up in court in these orchestrated amicus flotillas to tell the judges what to do.
It is so broken. It's so broken. So what do we do? What do we do? First, we have to know it. That's the first step. So I keep saying, unless we can all agree about where we are and how we got here, but more importantly, where we find ourselves today with this particular third confirmation hearing for a Donald Trump era Supreme Court justice, handpicked by the same group that picked Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, who has now picked her. $250 million is the price tag for packing the Supreme Court with people who will be told what to do through amicus briefs, friends of the court briefs, in cases that affect your life.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, so who actually brings these cases? Okay, and how are they funded?
The Republican senators filed briefs in that NFIB case signed by Ms. Severino. The woman who helped choose this nominee has written briefs for Republican senators attacking the ACA. Don't say the ACA is not an issue here. And by the way, the Judicial Crisis Network funds the Republican Attorneys General. It funds RAGA, the Republican Attorney General's Association, and it funds individual Republican Attorneys General. And guess who the plaintiffs are in the Affordable Care Act case? Republican Attorneys General. Trump joined them because he didn't want to defend, so he's in with the Republican Attorneys General. But here's the Judicial Crisis Network campaigning for Supreme Court nominees, writing briefs for senators against the Affordable Care Act, supporting the Republicans who are bringing this case, and leading the selection process for this nominee.
Wow. I mean, the amount of time that the Republicans put into getting over on the American people, if they would put just a smidge, just a touch, just a hair, just a tiny little portion of their time that they spend on, buying judges and affecting, the demolition of the ACA, if they would put just a scintilla of the amount of time into writing a health care plan, into helping the American people with a stimulus package in the era of COVID, if they would put just a fraction of the time in that they put into deceiving the American people, getting over on the American people, ripping off the American people, pretending that they are holier than thou, the whole pretense, the whole pretend, we would have a good country if they would put in just a fraction of the amount of hours and time that they put into destroying every single part of our governing system, of our institutions that we rely on to take on City Hall. This is why it is the way it is. This is the reason. Why do they like Trump? They like Trump because he keeps us divided, and he keeps on filling certain people's heads with fantasy, with crazy coups, and I was spied on, and they're going to jail, and revenge motives, and all that. Instead of focusing the American people's attention on how broken it is. Instead of telling and educating the American people about why it's so hard to just live in America these days, they decided Trump's the right guy because Trump will keep America divided. And, there's plenty of sayings about how, if you could find, a poor man and you could fill his brain with hatred, then he will fight the other poor people for you. For you. And that is the MO here. That is the game here. So what can we do about her? What can we do about stopping this gravy train? What can we do? First of all, we have to know who picked her and what they want. Second, you also have to vote. Why? Because hopefully, this is my fervent wish, and I always tell you when I'm wishing, October 22nd. Why? What's that day? October 22nd is the day that Lindsey Graham, that parasite, that leech, that guy who is on this gravy train, wants to vote for Amy Coney Barrett. He wants to have her confirmed on October 22nd. Let's just hope, let's just pray that the Democrats understand some of the procedural delay mechanisms that they have at their disposal and that they deploy them. Things like preventing a quorum, things like no unanimous consent votes, things like stopping the vote or at least delaying the vote long enough to get us to November 3rd. Why? Because we have special elections that affect the Senate in Georgia and Arizona. You may not realize this, but there are 2 open Senate seats in Georgia. Georgians know this. That's why the lines are so long in freaking Georgia. Okay? People get it. People in Georgia understand what's on their ballot. They've looked at it, they've made decisions, and they want to cast their vote. They know they have 2 Senate races. They have David Perdue, right? But they also have Kelly Loeffler. Kelly Loeffler was appointed to her Georgia Senate seat. So this is a special election. Okay? Kelly Loeffler is the woman who did the insider trading, okay, on the big pharma crap, right? And people are literally, educated about how dirty she is. She's the richest, believe it or not, the richest member of the Senate, this Loeffler, this lady. So the polling today shows that in that special election, which by the way is called, there's a name for it. It's a jungle election, okay? What does that mean? It means any party, any person from any party can run against Kelly Loeffler, right? And so you've got a lot of people running against Kelly Loeffler. There is one Democrat named Raphael Warnock who is the preferred candidate for Georgia Democrats. Warnock is polling 52% to Kelly Loeffler's 44%. Now, because there are so many candidates in that special election, to win, you have to get 50% plus 1. So it's important to know that there's only one, there was one new poll today, Quinnipiac, but the Quinnipiac poll that was released today show Warnock with 52% of the vote against Kelly Loeffler 44. Why do I care about that? Because in a special election scenario, whoever wins the special election is almost immediately seated. So Warnock would go to the Senate in a lame duck. He doesn't have to wait till January. Now, if he doesn't get 50% plus 1, there's another runoff in January, and that won't happen. Same thing in Arizona. where you have Mark Kelly, right? Mark Kelly running against Martha McSally. That is a special election for McCain's seat, okay? So Martha McSally was appointed, and that's why this is a special election. If Mike Kelly wins, he gets seated almost immediately. That would put him in the Senate during the lame duck. If we could delay the vote for the hand-picked $250 million enterprise judge until the lame duck, and we can win 2 special elections. The special election in Georgia. Yes, we have a regular election in Georgia, too, for a senator. We have John Ossoff running against David Perdue. But if we could win if we could win Loeffler's seat with Warnock in Georgia and in Arizona with Kelly, we got a shot.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. I think it could be a terrible election. I think we could lose the White House and both houses of Congress, that it could be a bloodbath of Watergate proportions. And I don't recall an election in my lifetime where the delta, the spread between those two was as dramatic as it is. And it makes this a very uncertain election.
So there's Ted Cruz telling you that it's scaring him. It looks like it could be a giant, I mean, there would be no word for it, a blue tsunami, a blue wave, a blue fire hose. He thinks it could be a blowout. There are 2 special elections for Senate seats in this cycle, and that's rare, okay? But Isaacson retired in Georgia, and he was replaced by an appointed pick, Kelly Loeffler. Kelly Loeffler is down in the polls in the mid-40s, and a guy named Raphael Warnock is up by, in the last poll that we saw today, a fresh poll today from the Quinnipiac, Georgia state poll, shows Warnock is 52%. If he actually wins, if Raphael Warnock can pull it off in Georgia, he would be seated in the lame duck session. The same thing with Arizona and Mark Kelly and Martha McSally's race. Mark Kelly is up 8 points in Arizona against Martha McSally. Mark Kelly, should he prevail in Arizona, which looks likely now, okay, we're only 20 days out, so these polls are meaningful now. If he stays 8 points ahead and blows out Martha McSally, he will have a seat in the Senate during the lame duck. So, if procedural delays are invoked by the Democratic senators who want to stop this 3rd seat from being filled by somebody who was bought and paid for by Leonard Leo and Carrie Severino and the Judicial Crisis Network and the Bradley Foundation and Donors Trust and a whole organization that does nothing but scrub the names of single donors who purchase these seats for $16 million from this one, a single donor. $17 million for that one, a single donor. $20 million for this one, a single donor. Totaling $250 million, $250 million to purchase the Supreme Court, to protect a very small elite group of people in this country from us, the unwashed masses. If they can succeed, they don't even care if they lose the Senate and the House, because they will have exactly what they've always dreamed of, and that is a Supreme Court that 6-3 will rule for the tiny sliver of the moneyed elite over and over and over and over on issues that we won't even cover. I mean, I covered Janice because I think the only way for the little people, and that's who I speak for, the people, the little people. The only way for us to combat all of this money is through collective bargaining, is through numbers. And that's what we have going for us, numbers. And that's why they're so interested in suppressing those numbers on Election Day. On Election Day, we have as much power as they do. It's just we don't get that power except once every 2 years, and they have it every day. And they plot and plan and scheme. 30 years at a clip, they lay out an agenda. 30 years in a clip. They know what they're going for. And they're going for everything. They're going for health care. They're going for land use. They're going for pollution and EPA regulations. They're going for voting rights. They're going for gerrymandering. They're going for doing away with you having your day in court. They're going for the whole enchilada. They want a corporate America. That's what they want. They want like the NFL to not play for the National Football League. They want the NFL to become the CFL, meaning the Corporate Football League. It's kind of like that dystopian movie. I was just talking to Brett about it the other day. Remember that movie Rollerball with James Caan? He played Jonathan E. And, you know, it's a dystopian movie about when corporations take over America to the point where the sports teams play for corporate America. They play for different corporations instead of playing for different regions of the country, right? And instead of the national anthem, they sing the corporate anthem. I mean, it's dystopian, it is. But I mean, honest to God, this has been their goal, their dream for 30, 40 years in the making. This is not something that just happened. It's something that's been incrementally ratcheted up against us. And this crazy division between us, the little people, against each other is the dumbest thing ever. The dumbest thing ever. Because they understand that if you give me, you know, the unwashed masses, I could turn one group against the other group. They'll be fighting each other while we steal the store. Well, we do everything. Let them live in chaos and filth and disease. And we'll be over here. Stealing. Rigging. Taking. Robbing. Thieving. And that is where we are. So it's very important to vote, especially Arizona, Georgia. Georgia, they're waiting 11 hours. This is the 21st freaking century. Why do you think people are having to wait 11 hours, 8 hours to cast a ballot? Why? In Georgia. There are 2 Senate races. There's 2 seats in Georgia. Every state has 2 senators, and both of those are on the ballot in Georgia. Both of them. You want John Ossoff, but you want Raphael Warnock. You want Mark Kelly in Arizona. Those 2 seats could be seated in the lame duck. In the lame duck. And you know what would then have to happen? You could actually have Mike Pence voting for Amy Coney Barrett in a tiebreaker as a lame duck vice president. I mean, so that is what I'm hoping for, and that's why I wanted to explain to you where we are. Lynn in Dallas.
Randy,
Lynn.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
Yep.
I'm so excited. I'm down in Texas, and it's looking great here. I just want to say.
Oh, my God. You know Harris County, where Houston is? That's Houston, right?
Yeah, I'm in northern.
No, I know where you are.
Yeah, they're having a.
No, I know where you are. I lived there, too, but I never lived in Houston. They have 97% of the eligible voters registered in Harris County. Can you imagine that?
Yep. I got chills.
I know.
And
that's a beautiful thing.
So my whole family voted yesterday, and there were lines. We had to wait, which was never happened before. We've been here in 15 years. You can tell I'm not from here originally, but yeah, it was exciting. So
How long did you wait?
20-year-old. Well, we were watching online. You know how they
How
get
long?
that
How long?
indication.
Quick, we're going to run out.
And we ended up waiting for 2 hours, and then we went up there, and it was only 20 minutes. But
2 hours and 20 minutes.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The Washington Post and the New York Times both report the White House is leaning even harder into a herd immunity strategy. That is, to let coronavirus spread among young, healthy people while protecting the elderly and medically vulnerable. But the herd immunity strategy has been denounced by most infectious disease experts, including the World Health Organization just days ago.
Herd immunity is achieved by protecting people from a virus, not by exposing them to it. Allowing a dangerous virus that we don't fully understand to run free is simply unethical. It's not an option.
It's not an option, according to the World Health Organization. But, you know, scientists last week have been informing Donald Trump on the pandemic. And, of course, Fauci's out, Birx is out, and the Fox TV doctor Atlas is in. And they are telling the president, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just keep having these super spreader events. Just keep going around the country. Get all these people together. They will infect each other. And go for herd immunity. Go for herd immunity. Now, I just want you to have some real numbers. Herd immunity in the United States would mean 200 million infections. 200 million people would have to get infected to achieve herd immunity. If only 1% of the 200 million died, the death toll would be 2 million people. 2 million people. That is mass murder, and that is what they're for. That is what Dr. Atlas and there's an actual document called the Great Barrington Declaration. The Great Barrington Declaration. They're very good at naming things. Very, very good. And it does not mention wearing masks. It does not mention engaging in social distancing, avoiding crowds, indoor environments, or any other recommendations that are obviously endorsed by the National Institutes of Health, by the Center for Disease Control, by our government, by the Food and Drug Administration, etc. They're like, let it spread. Just let it go. Let everybody get infected. And what's really interesting about the Great Barrington Declaration is the signatories. The people who signed the Great Barrington Declaration: Dr. Johnny Bananas, Dr. Person Fake Name. Phony signatures on this document. And it has found its home here in Florida. Ron DeSantis, our governor, Ron Death Sentence, as we love to affectionately call him, the guy who dressed his baby in a Donald Trump onesie in order to win election here in Florida, is all on board for the herd immunity approach. Dr. Hazeltine, who you know, said that this would be mass murder.
I'm extremely concerned that the president is being advised by people who speak of herd immunity. Herd immunity is another word for mass murder.
Great.
That is exactly what it is. If you allow this virus to spread, as they are advocating, we are looking at 2 to 6 million Americans dead. Not just this year.
2 to 6.
But every year. The reason for that is that there is no such thing as herd immunity. These viruses, coronaviruses, come back year after year and infect the very same people. We know that from very detailed studies of the viruses, their cousins, the coronaviruses that cause colds. Every year they come back and infect the same people, the same virus. This is an unmitigated disaster for our country to have people at the highest levels of our government countermanding our best public health officials. We know this epidemic can be put under control. Other countries have done it.
Yeah.
We are doing the opposite.
This is a very fringy group of the epidemiological class of people in this country. This is not mainstream science. This is dangerous. This would be mass murder. This would be a massacre. This would be the American carnage that Donald Trump spoke about in his first inaugural and last inaugural address. This literally would be the president saying he doesn't care if 2 to 6 million people have to die. He doesn't want to lift a finger in this pandemic. He doesn't want to do anything at all. He doesn't want to stimulate the economy so that people can stay home. He doesn't want to shut down businesses. He doesn't want people to wear masks. It's become a political statement about whether or not you keep your droplets to yourself. Really, that's a political thing. And he's saying let younger people spread it amongst themselves. Now, we don't know what the long-term effects of COVID-19 is in young people. It could be heart problems. It could be chronic lung damage. It could be long COVID where blood vessels are, infected, and strokes, blood clots. We don't know. We have no earthly idea. And then you have these kids going home to their parents, and maybe in multi-generational households, to their grandparents too. It's a ridiculous thing. This is what they're for. Please vote. Please vote like your life depends on it, because your life depends on it. It's just that simple. Inez in Georgia.
What's she saying?
Inez?
Yes. Oh, okay. Can the FBI or whomever go put the Republican Party on trial for RICO? RICO Act.
So who is the head of the Department of Justice, Inez?
That's Barr, isn't it?
Yes, and the FBI answers to Barr.
So what else can we do?
We'll get him out of office, and Barr has to go too, right? We'll get a new attorney general. We'll get new U.S. attorneys. And yes, then Donald Trump can die in jail.
That sounds like a winner to me.
Doesn't that sound good?
Yesterday I voted for Ossoff and Warnock. So.
Oh, great. Thank you. How long did it take you?
It was in Carroll County, Georgia.
Where is
that? Carrollton.
Where? Carrollton.
It's the county seat of it's almost into Alabama, not quite, but
yeah.
Anyway, I'm a handicapped person, and I got in the long line, and one of the workers came out, and everybody was in the wheelchair or whatever. They made special provisions for us to get on in there. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, that's great. I'm so happy for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. From a grateful heart to yours. Thank you so much. Thank you. Linda in Missouri.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, this is about the Amy Coney Barrett.
Yes.
Why would the Senate vote her in if she can't remember anything? She can't answer anything. All they're doing is talking to themselves.
Well, I thought I explained that in the first 2 hours of the show. Hopefully it's a little clearer why her. Of all the people in the world who are great litigators, great judges, great whatever, this girl has never tried a case in her entire life. Not one case has she ever litigated. She's never been in a courtroom, okay, ever. She taught law school. She opined a great deal about her views on privacy rights for women, contraception. She opined about the Affordable Care Act. She said she thought Justice Roberts wrongly decided it. She's been writing and putting her name on ads saying, abortion is barbaric. She wants to end it for a long time. The only thing she has not done is try a case ever. She's been a professor of law, and then 3 years ago, the Federalist Society picked her and put her on the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, which doesn't have jury trials, as you know. Those are appeals courts that object to what lower courts find based on procedure. And that is her only experience in our legal system. So why did they pick her? There's some really good litigators out there. Lindsey Graham is a litigator. He's tried cases. He's a trial lawyer. Why would they pick a girl who does nothing but write opinions in law reviews and sign on to newspaper ads, indicating her preferred position on their issues, but has no courtroom experience. Why would they choose her out of all the people in this country? Yeah, you're going to have to ask yourself that question and answer it, because they know she's reliably going to help them advance their agenda for the tiny little sliver of billionaires in this country. America is broken. It is.